Hello there everyone, welcome back, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Nerf Rival Apollo. Now, this is one of the initial blasters released in the Nerf Rival line, which is launched all the way back in 2015, along with the Zeus, which is a flywheeler. Now, this was the first Springer option that was available in the Rival line, and is notable at the time for being one of the very first of the type to fire the rival balls, which were different from something such as the Nerf Elite Dart, which was a dart, whereas the balls were small. They're closer to a type of performance blaster, which is pretty much the closest Nerf has ever gone to the performance arena. And it was quite a big thing back then, though of course now it's commonplace, but this is one of the very first examples of the rival blasters that were released. And today in this video, as of course the nerfing world back in 2015 is different from the nerfing world in today of 2022, we'll be taking a look at this blaster to see if it is of any use to the community today. But first of all, let's take an overview of this blaster in particular. Now, it has this muzzle here at the front here, which is kind of cool. If you can get in focus, then though it is notable that it's not an in-strike rail attachment, which means that you can't put any of the attachments on the front of it. And besides that, of course, it has an interesting profile. The prime up here, which is sort of like that. There haven't really been a whole lot of other Nerf blasters to have this type of prime, and that combined with the very forward of the grip and everything, and with there not really being a stock, which is a little odd, which means that you can theoretically shoulder it, though there's no stock to reduce the impact or anything, which means that it's not really a primary, but it's not a pistol either, so sort of almost a submachine gun type-esque in its profile, though it's a Springer blaster, so a little odd there, but regardless of that, it does have a priming indicator on the back, so if you were to prime this blaster, that would turn orange, so you can see whether or not you're primed. Then it has a safety here, so if you press it like that, then you are safe, you cannot fire the blaster. If you were to press it like that there, that's fire, and you're free to fire. And yeah, it also has a unjamming button here, so if you were to jam, you could press that down like that, and then you could reprime. And it does have this magazine here. It's fed by a 7-round stick mag, though it is compatible with some of the other rival mags they've come out with. So you can press that button there, and that releases the mag. And overall, the mag itself is different from any of the dart type mags, but it is fairly standard now for Rival, where this is the 7-round type, but it loads in from the top here, and that notch there is the front, so that goes into the front here. Of course, if you really want to, you can also press this, and that launches all your balls. Yeah, which does mean I'll have to reload all these now, because this is the only mag I have. But anyways, 6, 7, here we go, we're all loaded up. Let's stick that back in. Alright, now on to the firing demo. There we go. Firing demo over. This is a decent Nerf blaster for its time, but the big problem is that with Rival, there's been a lot of blasters that have come out over the last couple years, and for instance, a Helios, which was basically the replacement for the Apollo, which was pretty much the same, except it was bolt action, and the bolt was ambidextrous, so you could fit to either side, or since I'm right-handed, I'd fit to the left side. That made it overall a better blaster, and that combined with some of the other features meant that it sort of made the Apollo obsolete, because one of the problems I have with this blaster, which it's not a massive deal, the problem is that up here, with the way that everything is positioned, the priming handle here means that with that relative to where your grip is, it creates sort of a fulcrum, a lever, if you will, which means that if I try to prime this, it wants to come back like that, so I have to exert force to prevent that from happening, which it's not a massive deal, but I would rather it not do that. And with a Helios, with a bolt action, that reduces that problem, so that combined with other features, of course, means that it's not exactly the most advanced blaster out there in terms of its performance, though it is still decent enough, so if you don't have access to any of the newer ones, you can, of course, still use this, but it's more or less obsolete today. There's not really a use for it, and that is notable, that is fairly common, and for instance, you should be able to find one in, say, a local thrift store, which is actually how I got this one. But besides that, there's not a whole lot else left to go over with this blaster. It's a decent enough blaster, especially for its time, but more or less obsolete with, let's see, the Helios, and even the Helios itself is starting to become obsolete with the advent of newer blasters such as the Takedown, the pump action one, and now the Rival AccuStrike ones, which are not really more accurate, but irrespective of that, the blasters themselves are still pretty decent, which means that it's not really a specific place for this these days. And if you really want something that's sort of a submachine gun type secondary, which you could, well, you can't actually put on the sling since there's no sling attachment points, but if you want something that was sort of a secondary, the Helios fulfills the same function, even for its own niche. And as for a primary, even in the first place, even back then, it was never really a primary, so sort of stuck between several worlds in terms of what it is, and sort of an identity crisis, if you will, so there's not a whole lot else left to go over with this. It's a decent blaster, but there's better options out there, so unless you find one for cheap, it's not really worth it, but, you know, you'll find them, and they'll probably get rare, so anyways, yeah, that's pretty much the video, so have a good day, everybody.